away from the line, then basically small amount of revs, and then basically I'm changing up before 8,000. You can see that it's peaked above that because obviously what the blip in the throttle actually does. So about 7,800. Nice small movements on the way down. On the left hand side here you'll see that I've hit a shadow and through the other side. At this point, this is when I'm making a manoeuvre to grab a gear and to get on the brakes. You can also see now I've actually already started to adjust the steering slightly to take me over to the inside of the corner. Whatever you do, you don't go to the outside of the bend. It will just basically, the car will just understeer because of the road, and you'll be into the kitty litter that you can see just in front of it. So I'm settling the car down, full lock, get down to 60 miles an hour. I'm starting to think about reintroducing the throttle. You can take curb, that's fine. As you know, the car is very unique handling. It's an old chassis, it's soft suspension setup. That gives us an awful lot of grip that's available. So providing that we make allowances for hitting bumps and stuff like that, then we can coax her into to making quite good progress. This line also allows you to get on the throttle that bit earlier as well, and head out to the outside of the track and head down the hill. Line release resistance as always, nothing much I can tell you about this, just small movements, full throttle, and again I'm not going anywhere near the near 8,000 RPM as I head down this section. I'll be setting up by going over to the right hand side in a second. You can see there's two trees in the distance there. There's a small tree with a taller tree stood but almost behind it, and that's the point where I'm going to be basically getting off the throttle. I'm moving over to the right hand side because I know there's a left hander coming up. I'm actually going to ride the curb on the way in, because what that does, I've grabbed the gear as well, it still allows me to settle the car down, which is what I'm doing now. Basically I know what I need to do to go through this bend, and what I'm doing before I get to it is making sure that happens. So I'm losing the speed, I've got some steering on, none of it is excessive, and 100 miles an hour is quite safe through here. The car's going to scrub ride, so obviously you'll need to be heading for the inside part like we have done. You can actually physically jump part of that curb, but it just means you've got a rougher landing, so either or. Now I managed to goof this next bit up. I'm obviously making my way back over to the left hand side for the right hander, and in a second where that patch of grass is missing again, this is where I'm starting to, the manoeuvre. But ideally what I should be doing now is I should have already rocked the steering over to the right hand side. I haven't, and that means that basically I miss the entry to this corner, which, being over to the right hand side, even though it's not a constant radius here, it just allows you, it almost sucks you into the corner. So I'm still in the same gear. She's starting to find some traction now, so now she's going to start and do what I actually want, which is basically get over to the right, set up for the left. And at this point you've got the yellow writing on the track. I'm going to grab a gear and get on the brakes, and you can see here, as soon as at every opportunity, I will, after the manoeuvre, I will get straight on the throttle, because I know that at 66 miles an hour the speed isn't excessive, and the car doesn't actually, it seems to prefer having some trailing throttle going through a lot of the bends, even the faster stuff. So you can see that I'm not crowding the curb, if you like, on the right hand side. I'm doing this because in a second I'm basically going to allow the car, I've rocked off here again in this middle of this writing, to allow the car just to pull a little bit tighter through, and again that part will allow the car to get sucked round the corner. You can use this curb here, but again you've got to then make allowances for jumping off that landing and getting over to the left hand side. So either or, you can do it, as long as it's a constant speed you're fine. And then it's a matter of just blatting down this back almost straight, just threading your way through the curbs, coming down to this constant left-hander, which is very tricky. You can see in a second that I'm starting to make the allowances for the fact that there's a kink in the road. This is the kink that I'm talking about, so it's a matter of getting some left hand on it. We're doing 126 miles an hour, we need to lose some speed in a bit, but it's got to be completely controlled. So this is why I've still got steering on to get the car used to the motion. The fact that I'm turning now is losing some speed, which is good, but I'm also rocking on and off the throttle as well, slightly. So I've got a tracking an inside line now. Taking the curb here is fine. She's going to scrub out, which is absolutely fine. Don't fight with the car here. You just use all the available track that's here that you can see. Again, unfortunately, I managed to cock this corner. Start the manoeuvre for braking before you get off the curbs or as you get off this curb here. But I needed now already at this point. I needed to be turning left. I've missed that by 3 car lengths, which is enough even on the brakes to mean that I'm going to miss entry to it. I could have carried more speed round here and it still have been completely balanced, but that's just the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. So I'm going down to second gear here to help compensate to bring the car back into line, because I am out of line here. I needed to be on the left hand side to stay left to be able to flick across right for this bit that's coming up. So you can take this in third gear. If I were you, I'd miss this curb here, stay clear of it. It does unsettle the car, especially when you're going through it at a faster speed. And then it's down to this tricky right-hander. I brake on the shadow of this tree here, and I found the best way now is you can see that I'm aiming to the inside of the corner. I stamped virtually on 100% braking, and I grab down a gear, and then what I do is I get off the brakes as soon as I can and then get on the throttle as soon as I can. We're only doing 57 miles an hour, and so it does sort of kind of cope quite well with the acceleration at this point. I ought to have straightened up more here, because you can see I'm actually heading for the middle of the track. I shouldn't be, I should actually be heading for that part. So, and now I'm fighting with the car because I'm losing the back end, and I'm having to opposite lock it to keep it on the road. So use all the curb on the left hand side on exit here. It's just less work. Luckily a gear change and a quick change of direction manages to hold her steady. Again, we are quite a long way from this fast turn, and you can see I've already got left hand on to be able to get round. I'm basically trying to carry as much speed as I can through here, which is about 100. At this point we could be carrying more speed, but I wouldn't, because what tends to happen is you'll get into the middle of the chicane and everything goes pear-shaped, and you'll be fighting to keep the car on the track, and all the speed that you went in with you'll lose on the way out. So it's certainly a matter of, like is in most cases, where slower in is faster out. So lots of steering on here to get used to the motion. Don't leave it all to one go and then just crank the steering over, because all you're going to do is upset her, and she's going to basically find the Armco. Obviously the friction caused created by turning is losing some speed. We need to be clear of the curb on the right hand side. Touch that at your peril. You can touch it and you can stay on the track, but a lot of times at this speed, if you hit that, you're going to be on 2 wheels, and it looks great, but it's not fast. So nice controlled line through there if you can. Again, this is another tricky section. I mean, the course is just ladled with tricky sections. Here you can see a lighter coloured bush on the right hand side there. Looking at this point, I've actually started to think about the manoeuvre for this sweeping tricky right hander. So many undulations through here. I do find that an inside line is the fastest way. You can see that basically I'm sliding all the way through this, but it's a controlled slide. It's 95 miles an hour. The good thing about this is if you can do this on the way, as she gets more composed, as you make progress around the rest of the corner, you can increase your speed, which is what you can see now. Look, she's building up to 100. If you got in too quick, you'd be adjusting, it would be a nightmare, and you certainly again would be slower on the way out. And again, it's just a matter of little you can see the rocking on the steering, that's the adjustments that's being made just to compensate for the bumps in the track. What's going to, with lots of laps, you know what's going to unsettle the car, and it's just a matter of straightening the steering whenever you know those moments are going to occur to stop her from coming round on you. This is the point just before the patchy grass there to make the manoeuvre for this tricky right and left. This is driving by the seat of your pants, and stay as far left as you can. Grab a gear, aim to get as close to the right hand curb as you can. Again, at this speed I would stay clear of the curb, because basically all it'll do is flick you over onto the left hand side, That's if that don't already happen, because obviously the forces that's going through this car at the moment are amazing at 80 mile an hour. You think we're above motorway speeds, we're actually in the middle of a bend. So try not to carry any extra speed through here. That just makes your job easier getting out. You can see here now, I know the car's going to misbehave big time. That's why I'm on full opposite lock, because otherwise the car's just going to come round. I know she's going to snap straight. At that point I'm ready for that, and I'm straightening straight up, and now I can have another dose of brakes. And basically, because you don't want to be braking at this point when when you're doing a rallycross manoeuvre, you don't want to be braking at that point, because that would be a nightmare. So she's straightened up. You can see that I'm onto the brake now for the second part of this manoeuvre, and I found this is the quickest way out. Slightly wide on entry. You can see it's not constant radius anyway, it's a corkscrew. Stay out and then feed her back in, and it's just a matter of testing for grip, and the rocking off there is to help keep her on the left hand side, because you don't want to be going over to the right hand side here, because as you come out you need to stay to the left of the middle of the road, so that you can already look, as soon as you finish that manoeuvre you're starting to get the car used to the motion of turning right, because if you don't and you do it all in one go, here she'll just be too unsettled and slide out from you. Again, miss the curb and straighten up as soon as you can, which you can see that I'm doing there, and then it's a black down to the line, and hope you find your improvements for this.